Super. So welcome everybody and thank you so much for joining us for this session. Hopefully you had a chance to have a little look at the riddles on the screen. So I think the giveaway with the science one might have been the MG and the fireworks. So that one is magnesium. Not being an English specialist myself, I'll let Verity talk to you about the English one briefly.
I'm sure, Nicola, you can manage this one. The answer is a metaphor.
Perfect. Good stuff. So that's just a little bit of something whilst we're waiting. The other thing is, whilst we go through the session, if you would like to enter the draw, I have had a few names already. I will quickly go over. So we're going to spin this wheel at the end of the session. There's the opportunity to add your name in the chat, and we can add those to the wheel, and then we will go and spin that at the end of the session for those learning review. And we are back on our screen and we'll kick off properly.
Great. Okay, thanks, Nicola. Right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar, Why Tuition Makes a Difference and How to Make It Count. The title, we hope, shows that tuition can be a very powerful contributor to your child's success. The title also involves you as a parent in the tuition process. You are the main decision maker after all, and the tuition landscape is broad and you need to be informed about particular approaches and models which will work for your child. During the course of this webinar, we'll shed some light on these different models.
Super. Yes, and we thought because we've got different areas and subjects, Verity being an English specialist and myself with NK Tutoring working in maths and science, we've got some similarities, but there are some differences as well. It's nice to kind of highlight a few of those as we go through the process. So if people do have questions, we do have a Q&A session towards the end, but please do feel free to pop any in the chat as we go through as well.
Absolutely.
Oh, I've gone the wrong way. There we go. Right, I'll let Verity introduce herself.
Okay, thank you, Nicola. Right, so for those who don't know me, my name is Verity Bell. I'm an online English tutor, qualified teacher with over 20 years of experience in education for my sins. These days I work entirely online, supporting students aged 9 to 18 with 11 plus, GCSE, IGCSE and A-level English. I help them to develop the skills and boost their confidence, whether they're struggling, coasting or aiming for top grades. How about you, Nicola?
Super, thank you. Yeah. So, again, I've gone the wrong way again, but we'll get there in the end. So, yes, I'm Nicola Kelting from NK Tutoring. I'm also a qualified teacher, science teacher. Teaching was my second career. My primary career was working in biological research. That took me to lots of places around the world. And so I always smat up my sort of tuition and teaching with real life experiences of working in tropical biodiversity research, which is always quite nice and fun. And I have a team of tutors who work with me. We predominantly support students in GCSE science, combined sciences, separate sciences, and maths, further maths. But we also help with A-level as well, depending on what you're looking for. And yeah, very similar to Verity in the sense that a lot of our work is helping students build their confidence and gaining skills and making progression in the subjects that they need to work on. So if I'm going to click it in the right direction, we'll see. Excellent.
Okay.
So
Are you going?
Sorry, go on.
I think we said you'd go over the agenda, didn't we, Nicola?
Yes, I think we did. I've just looked at the wrong piece of paper. Yes, so super, you can see here already, these are the things that we're aiming to cover. Just to give you a little bit of an overview. And again, there'll be a few areas where it'll differ slightly for the different subjects, and hopefully that gives you a flavour. So we're cross-pollinating, which is quite nice, and learning from each other. Both Verity and I have met before at tutor conferences. We're members of the TTA, which is the Tutors Association, which gives us accreditation as well as online educators working within the tuition landscape. So in terms of tuition making a difference, if I can click it in the right direction, hopefully this will help.
Okay, right. So there are a range of reasons behind a student needing some extra support from a tutor. One of the most common ones is that a child has big gaps in their knowledge of a text. This is for English, at least. Or in their skills and strategies. But Nicola and I have spoken about this. It's also the case for science and maths. You know, people have big gaps in their knowledge. This could be reasons such as missing school or a lack of consistency of teachers or not being able to focus in class for various reasons. It's a surprising fact that often high attaining students also lack confidence. They've sometimes been put in top sets, but they feel overwhelmed, or they're worried that they're not measuring up to their peers. In English, feedback in class from class teachers, sometimes isn't as detailed or as timely as it could be, just because of the pressures of teaching and marking 200 books regularly. As a result, your child may not know what they need to focus on in order to improve. So lastly, revision is often left to the last minute, and English language can be completely neglected and labelled as impossible to revise, which is just not the case. Don't ever believe your child if they say they can't revise for GCSE English language. There's plenty that can be done. And it would have a serious impact if they don't revise. Yourself, as a time-strapped parent, you want to help, of course, but you don't necessarily have the right resources at your fingertips. Or the required knowledge to help your child to improve.
So the key with a lot of those things is consistency, isn't it? And it's having the time to work on it, and the tuition, whether that's in a group format or in a one-to-one format, allows that support for the student on a regular basis. And that's where we both find students make their progress from that consistency and that regular work. And it's practice. And that old phrase, practice makes perfect, it doesn't necessarily need to be perfect, but practice makes a massive difference in the long run. Super. So just having a think about how tuition can help, and just thinking about things slightly differently between the subjects. The way we approach science and maths in terms of thinking about what the student would like to work on, we use a checklist format, which is specific to the exam board of what they're working on, and also whether they're year 9, 10 or 11. To then rate the topics in terms of their confidence. And this is what we call RAG rating. So red, amber, green being confident, amber being in the middle, need to do some improvement, and red could be topics they haven't done yet, which is absolutely fine. Could be topics they really found tricky for whatever reason. And so that's our starting point, because as Verity mentioned earlier, we don't know, or students don't know what they don't know. And so we have to, have a good list of seeing where we're working from and prioritize that list. And students do then feel empowered that they know where they can start, and they can kind of see a route of where they're going to go, and where tuition can take them. Within that, because we do science and maths, there's a lot of maths within the science, we can do a lot of linking across the curricula, which is absolutely fantastic and helpful. And again, within that process, look at exam technique for the specific exam boards, how the questions are worded, how to break them down. And that is subject specific, and it is exam board specific as well. Within that, we have a reflective practice where we celebrate with our students what they've done well, in terms of highlighting their achievements. We also then look at areas to improve on, plan what we're going to work on the following week, but also that crucial, what can the student do before next week themselves? That can have such a big impact. And then they're looking at improving their depth and breadth of that independent work that they can do themselves. So you see that there's similar things to English, but there's obviously slight tweaks that are specific to the subject.
That's right. And Nicola, you were saying, I think when we discussed this before, that the idea behind reflective practice for science and maths is to build autonomy. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. The suggestions are coming from the students, supported and guided by the tutor. And the more that we actually write that down, whether it's pen on paper or whether it's typing on that screen and recording it, research shows we're far more likely to actually do that work ourselves. So sometimes it's the trickle effect. You can lead the horse to water, as it were. But the more you do it, the more likely the students are to then do that independent work and do it themselves without being prompted. So over time, we find that students will say, oh, yeah, and I'll do that before next week. I've not even asked, and that's absolutely magic.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. That's a dream, isn't it? To build the confidence up, practice lots and lots, and then set them free a bit.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Fly. Yeah. So as Nicola's already alluded to, there are many crossovers despite the difference in our subject matter. And generally, when I start tutoring either one-to-ones or small groups, I'll start with an assessment. This is as much for me as it is for the student, in that it will help me plan a course of study once I can identify student strengths and weaknesses. Also, it's quite common that the student doesn't know their strengths or weaknesses, and that's why they can't progress. They need to know what the assessment objectives are, and this isn't always made explicit. So that's another function of assessment. When I give students feedback on their exams and on their results, I can give them really granular feedback, and that demystifies the exam a bit. They realize, oh, it's not rocket science. This is how I get a higher grade in this particular question. So regular feedback really is key, this feedback loop that tutors are able to give the student, which allows them to make steady progress. And the assessment also allows me to come up with a roadmap of focus points throughout their course. But it is important to be flexible, as we'll talk about later.
Super duper. So hopefully that just gives you an idea of what's involved. And within that, we are aiming for the majority to support students in the work that they do at school. However, there are opportunities for students who might not be in school regularly. That will be a slightly different approach. And the fundamentals still apply, in that we are building a personal approach that is paced for that particular student, and we're building the relevant skills. So the skills may be very different for English as they are to biology, but in biology you still need to write lengthy answers, so you can still use some of those English skills. So you can think about crossovers, and often it's nice asking students to bring in their understanding and knowledge from other subjects, and it's nice what they will come up with. Feedback within sessions can be immediate, which again is a benefit of tuition, which is just not physically possible in a classroom of 30 students. And also with students learning to be reflective about their own learning, they will grow in maturity and confidence in doing this as they go through their GCSE into A levels, and it will really set them really well for their independent work going into A levels, if they can self-regulate and say, actually, I do need to do more work here. What am I going to do about it? And that can really help going forwards. Anything else to add there, Verity?
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit. We should talk about the soft skills involved in tutoring. Although we're both, and Nicola's team may be also, qualified as tutors and as teachers, we are not authoritarian, if you like, in the same way as a teacher may be. We don't have to be, basically. So we occupy that kind of space between classroom teacher and not so much a friend, but the importance of a relationship with a tutee or a group of tutees can't really be overstated. It's really a part of what really motivates a student to do their absolute best, and it's that consistency which sometimes doesn't exist, which can make a difference between one grade and another, in my experience. Is it the same as you, Nicola?
Yes, very much so. Getting that positive learning relationship going, finding some common ground and interests really helps when you are starting to challenge the student. They feel safe and in a trusted space to be challenged in an academic way, and therefore you can stretch them out of their comfort zones. And that can, once that relationship has got going, that can be much quicker than in the classroom. And also within the classroom, different students work at different paces, and not on what may stretch one student won't necessarily stretch another. So being that, especially with the one-to-one, it can be very much dedicated to the student's progress, but also in the small group, we can definitely have that stretch and challenge in those areas as well.
Absolutely. And accountability is really important. Whereas some students will just get on with it, others really do need someone at the, at the other end of the line, looking at what they're doing, pointing out what they need to do next. Keeping a track of their achievements, and it can just get them through their exams.
Yeah, very much so. And yes, and then we're on to thinking about types of tuition and thinking about what is best for your child. And as parents, you know your children well, you get feedback from school. So it's very much a personal decision in that area.
Absolutely. I mean, there are, as I said earlier, there are many, many different types of tuition, and that's a good thing. There's no single approach that works necessarily for every student, as Nicola was saying. Some young people respond brilliantly to peer tutors or near peer support, especially if what they need is a bit of encouragement or a fresh perspective. Others really benefit from having an experienced teacher who can break things down, spot misconceptions quickly, and provide structured curriculum-aligned guidance. But as we've said before, whatever the model, the relationship is key. Students, they need to feel safe, they need to feel supported, and they understand and understood, which is why it's such a lovely idea to bring interests other than what they're studying into your tuition model. I personally work with some brilliant science and mathematicians who don't necessarily enjoy English, so that although it's holding them back, which is frustrating. But this relationship allows them to engage, ask questions, and take those little academic risks that we all hope that they will do, and which will lead to real progress. So the key is finding the model that really works for your child and their confidence levels.
Yeah, and giving things a try and asking questions is the main thing. We can't, open up the heads and pour it all in. There needs to be the motivation from the student, and that's what can make the biggest difference with support and guidance. So making tuition count. I think we've both mentioned this earlier. There isn't a quick fix and there is no silver bullet with this, but working with students and getting them involved and interested in the plan, where they're going to go, getting them to say what they would like to work on, all of those things, they get ownership for what they're doing rather than just doing what they're asked to do. There's quite a difference within that. And over time, the students get a huge more out of it. And by having the weekly term time sessions, we get that consistency within the whole process.
Absolutely. And I think, I don't know about you, Nicola, but student buy-in is really important right from the get-go. That doesn't mean necessarily that the student has to be mega motivated initially. I find personally that motivation tends to grow when the student realizes, oh, I can do this. So yeah, a buy-in initially, really, yes, I'm going to commit to this, but then hopefully enthusiasm will grow with success.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Yeah, so part back to the different models, we both have flexible approaches. Different organisations have different areas in which they work. Personally, I exclude half terms. And again, that's very much suits some people, doesn't suit other people. So it's a case of finding out what works for you. And one-to-one is great for many students. Some students don't like to have one-to-one. They prefer to be in a group of 3 or 4. And that's great. It's finding out what works. But what we do have consistency in is the education methodology, the pedagogy, as we call it, in terms of being able to clearly model concepts to students, with students to involve them. So following the I do modeling, the we do, the guided practice, and the you do over to you independent, and we can give you immediate feedback as to areas of where you can improve. So there are various options that can suit your teenager.
Yeah, and on the same along the same lines, we also offer students who might be a little bit more self-motivated, perhaps a little more academic, the chance to get themselves in flipped learning. So that entails both Nicola and I making self-study resources available. Personally, I offer video courses which will plug gaps in students' subject knowledge of Shakespeare or the set text and Inspector Calls. or an English language course as well. So the student can watch these videos and then join me in the live lessons and build their skills, which means I'm spending less time just, as Nicola said earlier, pouring content in students' heads and more time giving constructive feedback on specific skills, which is something they perhaps don't have enough time for in class.
Yeah, and opportunities to have discussion and ask questions. With the best will in the world, students will have questions in classrooms, but they don't always get the opportunity to ask them. I remember being in the classroom, you go, oh yeah, I've got a question. By the time it got to a pause in the lesson to ask it, you could quite easily forget it. So that does not happen in small group or one-to-one tuition, because you can write it in the chat, you can mention it straight away. You can ask your tutor halfway through their phrase, hang on a minute, and that is all part and parcel of how tuition can really support, because it is guided by what the student would like to work on, as much as within the parameters of the qualification from the tutor. So in terms of kind of what happens next, the stages of the process, if you're interested in going further, Verity, you've got some initial short consultations.
That's right. Yeah. So I offer a free mini consultation. It's not the same as a lesson. It's an opportunity for me and the parent, and potentially also the tutee or the potential tutee involved. And we sit down for a 20-minute call to find out a bit more about your child, answer any questions you or he or she might have. And it's also a good opportunity to find out if your child feels that we'd be a good fit. After that, I offer a trial lesson, but it is a paid trial lesson, but there's no long-term commitment. How about you, Nicola?
Super. Yes. So my model is slightly different, but I have a session called a learning review. There's an opportunity to win that. So if you still want to do the spin the wheel, pop your name in the chat and I will add that shortly. And Verity is offering something similar, but largely more English related, to do with, perhaps you were thinking of a written piece of work feedback.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So it's the opportunity to send me a piece of work, either question 5 from the language paper or a literature analysis, and I will send you some feedback.
Super, super valuable. We've both got options for some summer sessions, and then also many students are securing places for September. I have some students from year 10 who would have alternating maths 1 week, science the other week. They're moving up to year 11 and they are firmly booking in 1 maths a week, 1 science a week. So we have those kind of natural changes, but also we invite new students to join the kind of cohort for the year, as it were, and those places. So we recommend earlier in the summer rather than later in the summer for September. And then that helps you to get to where you want to be and reach your goals by following a tuition pathway. So yes, Verity, you've got some lovely offers there.
Okay, lovely, thanks. So particularly for students who need to keep building their skills over the summer, I have a downloadable writing confidence pack, which I'm giving away. Well, I'm not giving away, I'm offering it for 50% discount for attendees. It's a resource I normally sell for £12. It includes 7 scaffolded writing tasks. They're all aligned to different exam boards. They're all designed to help students keep their writing skills active, without it feeling overwhelming. And it's aimed at students finishing year 9 or year 10. You can print it or do it online. And hopefully it's structured enough to build confidence, but light touch enough over the summer to feel achievable. And within that, there's also an option to add examiner marked feedback, i.e. myself, if you want more tailored support. And I'm also sharing a summer reading list here to help students to stay connected with language and ideas in a more relaxed and enjoyable way. Now, you can absolutely scan the QR codes here, but if you're watching on your phone, if you could just put your name and email in the chat and we'll send them to you.
Yeah, super. Equally for science, we've got the white QR code there that actually takes you to both the kitchen chemistry activities. So if you want to have a little bit of fun doing some chemistry, there is, I was about to say a recipe. So it's pretty much like a recipe, really, but for science to make some lava lamps, which is quite good fun. And then there's some information about the kind of chemistry behind it all. I've also got a back to school checklist for combined sciences. So students can have a little look and rate where their understanding is, which is a good place. Even if you're 9, 10 or 11, the modules that are involved with them for AQA are very important and therefore suitable for all of those year groups. Super. So we've got those there, and they're also, this is a recorded session which will be available on our YouTube channels. So we have that, and the QR code there for science should link directly to my website, which is going to be there all summer on that front. Anything else to add there, Verity?
No, that's great. Sounds good.
Okay, super. So here we have some time for Q&A, and I know there's a couple of questions that had been emailed in. Would you like to start with what you've had, Verity?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give my answer. If you want to chip in from a science and maths perspective, then that's great. So it says, one of my parents contacted me by email and she asked, my daughter would like to learn in a small group, but I'm worried it'll mean she gets less attention. Is this the case? So from my perspective, I certainly don't think it is the case. Personally, my groups are never really larger than 6 and as an absolute maximum, but tend to be around 4 students. And each of them has plenty of time for feedback while they write or while they're speaking. I work on a platform called Class In, which allows students to all write simultaneously, but for me as a teacher to look individually, take turns looking individually at what students are writing. But what parents don't tend to really consider is the amount of peer feedback you get in a small group when a tutor has created a safe and supportive atmosphere, and that Nicola and I, strive to do. So when the group is lovely and supportive, students can be encouraged to say, oh, look at this piece of writing. Why is this so good? What would you steal from this piece of writing? Steal with pride, I always say. And we can work together to, enhance one student's answer, or indeed enhance one answer altogether. There are facilities in which we can do this. So it's collaborative, and students often get a lot from that, in my experience. How about you, Nicola?
That's a great question, definitely, because I think parents and students themselves don't necessarily know, and they're not quite sure what might be best. And very, very much in that the peer work, the collaborative work can happen over time. It doesn't mean you're thrown into a breakout room with somebody you don't know. This is a gradual process, and once students are comfortable, they can work on a question together, discuss it, make separate plans, then go away and write separate ones, swap each other's. So often we do this with the longer answer question, the 6-mark questions we use in science, for example, because students need practice with those, and they are obviously really useful. Then students will pick out things, and peer feedback can be really impactful, and what they will take from their peer and actually listen in certain ways, and not necessarily to a tutor or a teacher. It can be quite interesting. It's great to observe as well. So often I will let them chat and go through a piece of work, update it, put some improvements on, but I'll switch my camera off and I'll just listen, which is a really nice thing to be able to do. So that's super. Great. Okie dokie. So I've had a few more names in the chat, so I'm going to add those on there, and we will spin our wheel, unless you had anything else in your inbox, Verity.
No, I haven't. I'm very excited to see this in action.
Okay, super cool. So just dropped down here, and I had 2 more. So I have got okay. There we go. Oh, that fell correctly. Super. So we'll do the first one, click and spin, and then I will contact those people, or the first person. Oh, it just went into Becky. So that was one of my contacts. So I will contact her specifically for that, which is super. And we'll spin the wheel for another one for Verity's offer for English.
Okay.
I should have taken Becky out, but if it comes up again, I will just.
Becky's going to be very lucky.
No, brilliant stuff. There we go. It's quite nice to have the little confetti and the claps. So
It is. Yeah, it's lovely.
Contacting.
Funny enough, yeah, I can get hold of Deborah, no problem.
Wonderful. That's really good. So on that note, we just would like to say thank you so much for joining us. Our details are here. So please feel free to look at our websites, drop us an email anytime you would like to, if we have any particular questions from this point.
Yeah, great. Thank you, everybody.
Super. Thanks. We'll make this recording available. Bye now.
Bye-bye.